Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to 07 from the Voice of America in Washington, and this is Live Talk. I am Kip Stube. Tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about the rising COVID-19 deaths and cases in Zimbabwe where there are serious issues concerning COVID-19. The arrest of TC Alliance activists and journalist Oprah Chinono and the U.S. presidential transition calls for President Donald Trump to be impeached. 24 people have already died of COVID-19 in Zimbabwe. As of yesterday, 24 people had died. 978 tested positive for COVID-19. And the Ministry of Health says there are over 21,000 people who have tested positive for COVID-19 since March last year. More than 12,000 people have recovered. And the country has recorded 507 deaths since March. Yebo kambe Zulanda balinjani lapha ekhona endaweni zonke zomhlaba ezijiyeneyo lapha ke siku live talk esixoxa khona ngokujiyeneyo okwenzakala kule Zimbabwe. Okunye kwangikhona esixoxa ngakho lapha ke sixoxa nge-COVID-19 ongani sibili idla ubhedu. Siyabona ukuthi sibili kulabantu abaningi ababhubhileyo izolo. Singathi kulabantu 24 ababulewe ngumkhuhlane we-COVID-19. So ke ngiyabona omunye wami ngasimhlanganya kuye usebuye Marvelous.
Welcome everybody. I'm Marvelous Mhlanganya Huye, broadcasting from my home in Washington, D.C. And like you said, the Minister of Health and Zimbabwe police have ordered people to stop transporting bodies of people who died of COVID-19 in order to reduce local transmissions. Zimbabwe is currently under level 4 COVID-19 lockdown, measures designed to curb the spread of the COVID-19 or coronavirus. And in court today, journalist Hopo Chingono and Job Sikala of the MDC Alliance appeared before Magistrate Lazini Ngube, facing charges of breaching Section 31A 3 of the Criminal Law Codification Reform Act by posting a tweet. And this is what's going on, and that's what we'll also be talking about. They posted a tweet that they are saying, or they're allegedly having to have posted a tweet that falsely reported the death of a child after a physical assault by the police. Their lawyers argue that this law is unconstitutional. MDC Alliance Fadzai Mahere has also been arrested on similar charges. Let's hear what Chingono is saying about this case.
Regulation. That's how bad this regime is.
So what's your charge?
They're saying that I peddled falsehoods. I commented on the story of the child who was beaten up when a police officer was indiscriminately using his battle stick. But it's covered by the law as a journalist. That law that they're using was struck off by the Constitutional Court. There's no criminal defamation.
And how were the conditions where you slept?
No, where I slept, I was treated well. I was treated well.
Do you have any complaints against the police?
The police are just being used by the politicians. This is a political persecution. As you know, this story was reported by news organizations, but they picked me out of everyone else. And they wanted to arrest Scala yesterday because I saw his paperwork at the police station for the same charge. So it's just political persecution. It's got nothing to do with the law. And this is why the world looks at Zimbabwe in a very dim way. It's because the politicians are creating this reality.
Yeah, lokho ngokunye okwenza khona ngale lapha sibone ke uHopewell Chinono ekhuluma le yestudio 7 mayelana ngakhonokho abhekane lakho. So ke siyabona ke Marvelous worldwide there are a lot of serious problems, but in USA the Speaker of the House of Representatives we see her doing something right now. So Nancy Pelosi is expected to ask Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment in an attempt to remove Trump from office following an orgy of violence at the Capitol Hill last Wednesday when senators and members of the House of Representatives were certifying electoral votes. Marvelous.
Yes, so this is some of the stuff that we're seeing happening right here in the United States. And the Democrat Joseph Biden, who is the president-elect, defeated Mr. Trump to clinch the presidential post. Trump is accused of telling his supporters to invade Congress in order to stop the counting of votes, claiming that the presidential election was rigged, and world leaders have condemned the violence. We have this report from a VOA correspondent who actually covered the event.
European allies watched with dismay as the violence unfolded at the US Capitol Wednesday.
What happened today in Washington, D.C. is not America. Definitely.
Diese Demokratie wird sich als viel stärker erweisen als die Angreifer und Randalierer.
On Twitter, Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson called the violence disgraceful. His Interior Minister Priti Patel blamed President Donald Trump.
His comments directly led to the violence, and so far he's failed to condemn that violence, and that is completely wrong.
NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg tweeted, "Shocking scenes in Washington, D.C. The outcome of this democratic election must be respected." A spokesman for the United Nations Secretary General said it is important that political leaders impress on their followers the need to refrain from violence. Israel's leader expressed support for his country's chief ally.
American democracy has always inspired me. Lawlessness and violence are the opposite of the values we know Americans and Israelis cherish.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote on Twitter, "The democratic process cannot be allowed to be subverted through unlawful protests." Meanwhile, US rivals taunted Washington. In a televised speech, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said it showed how fragile and vulnerable Western democracy is. In a statement, Venezuela said the United States is suffering the same thing that it has generated in other countries with its policies of aggression. China attempted to twist the narrative.
The mainstream media in the United States have unanimously condemned this as a violent incident, using words like thugs, extremists, villains, and disgrace. However, what words did they use to describe the violent protesters in Hong Kong? They said it was a beautiful sight and profiled violent protesters as democratic heroes and said that the American people stand with them.
Moscow's deputy UN ambassador Dmitry Polyansky compared the violence to the 2014 revolution in Ukraine, writing on Twitter, quite Maidan-style pictures are coming from DC. US allies share the pain of many Americans watching the violence at the heart of its democracy. Many foes are using the events as an opportunity to settle scores. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
So there you are. There's a lot that is going on in terms of this election and the certification of the votes. And so we see some countries actually spinning, saying, you know what, this is exactly like what happened in other countries. So yes. Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa also posted a tweet, and he said America does not have any standing ground to say some countries are sort of like authoritarian states. So at the end of the day, it's very confusing.
Yes, we've seen this playing out in the last few days. I'm actually from DC, so this was right in my background. But it's interesting to now see what's going to happen in the next coming days. But this week is very crucial, Gibbs. Like you say, we are awaiting right now to hear from the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, to see what action are they going to take. She was waiting on Vice President Pence to move a motion, but we're waiting to see what's going to happen. So an interesting week this week. Kunao vachangobva kupinda muchirongwa nhasi tiri kutarisa zvakawanda zviri kuitika pasi rose, tiri kutarisa zviri kuitika pachirwere chedenda reCovid-19. Tichitarisa zvakare zviri kuitika kumatare uko tiri kuona kuti nhengo dzeMDC Alliance dzinoti idzo vahopo ching'ono vanova ivo mutori wenhau uyezve nhengo dzeMDC Alliance vaSikala uyezve namuzvare mahere vari kunzi ivo vawanikwa vachisungwa muzuva ranhasi. Vasikala vakawanikwa vachisungwa nezuro asi vafadzai mahere vasungwa muzuva ranhasi vachipomerwa ivo mhosva dzakasiyana-siyana. Saka ndo zvimwe zvatichange tichikurukura pamusoro pezvazvo, tichitarisa zvakare zviri kuitika imo muno muamerica. Pari zvino tinoona kuti svondo rapera nemusi wechitatu makange muine mapisha-pisha apo takaona vatsigiri vavaDonald Trump vachienda ivo kunzvimbo inonzi US Capitol, vachienda kumuzinda ikoko vachiedza kuti vamise kuverengwa kwemavhoti aizotaura iwo kuti vaJoe Biden ndivo vanga vakunda musarudzo yeElectoral College vote inova iyo nzvimbo yekupedzisira panozotaurwa kuti ndiani akunda. Saka takaona vatsigiri ava vachipinda nechisimba, uyezve zvizhinji zviri kutaurwa pari zvino. Vazhinji vebato reDemocratic Party vakatungamirwa nevanotaura vakamira ivo muSenate kana kuti muCongress, amai Nancy Pelosi vanga vari kuti nhasi vachawanikwa ivo vachida kuti pawanikwe ipo pachiturwa yatingati iye motion yekuti vaDonald Trump vaitwe impeached, zvinoreva ito kuti vaburitswe nechisimba pabasa ravo pari zvino nguva yavo isati yakwana. VaDonald Trump vasara nemazuva mashoma kuti vawanikwe vachipedza basa, asi vemademocrats vari kuti aiwa ngavaende. Saka ndo zvimwe zvatinenge tiri kukurukura pamusoro pezvazvo. Gibbs.
Yes, I think our guests are lined up now. We've got Mr. Joseph Chuma of ZANU-PF, and we've got Mr. Busani Musontini. He is in here in USA, and other guests. So let's start with Mr. Chuma. Babu Chuma, we are still going up. Babu Joseph Chuma, we are still. Yeah, mbona zani ke ucingo lwakhe ungani lufiphele kancane singazi ukuthi uhambe njani. Yes, sesikuza Chuma. Kunjani Chuma?
Ngiyaphila Mthembu, utshona njani?
Siyatshona sibila. Siqalise ke COVID-19. So COVID-19 has become a very, very serious challenge in Zimbabwe, and people are restricted from transporting bodies of people who die of COVID-19. So tell us a bit about what's going on in that respect.
Yes, there was a communique to that effect that due to this pandemic, bodies will be buried where the person who would have died. But I'm glad because just today, later on today, during the day, another communique came again from the Minister of Health to say that bodies can now be transported to whichever place the people would wish to bury their loved ones at, but provided that certain standards are met, like for example, the coffin has to be in triple or something like that, and they must seal it and make sure that they adhere to the whole standards of carrying out that kind of burial. So I'm sure, like I've always said, that the minister could have come up with that position from a certain advisory sector, but because this government is a listening government, when other people were not happy about that, they lobbied with the government, they lobbied with the ministry, and now the ministry has made a U-turn, which is very normal, and we must applaud such action because, like I've always said, no one has a monopoly of ideas. So if something is put down, it's not cast in stone. It's a simple measure to say this is what we have come up with. But after consultation, I'm sure traditional leaders will come in, different groups will come in and add their views and probably come up with other strategies to try and do this thing in a very healthy way, so to say, so that we don't then spread the virus all over. Now the ministry has now come up with another measure to say bodies, yes, can be moved, but certain conditions have to be met before those bodies are moved. So it's a positive to me, and I'm sure if people always have an open mind to engage government, things are going to move on, because government doesn't necessarily mean that whatever they say then it becomes correct or becomes a norm. It's a simple measure of saying that this is what we've come up with, and then people are always free to critique and positively contribute towards the action to be turned around.
Marvelous.
Maybe I don't know if Mr. Chuma can hear me.
Yes, you can.
Vachuma, saka zviri kufamba sei pari zvino tichiona kuti tiri kunzwa zvakasiyana-siyana pamusoro pekuti vanhu vanokwanisa here kuwanikwa ivo vachiviga vadikani wavo kwatingati kuye kungave kuri kumusha kwavo kana kumwe zvakadaro zviri kufamba sei?
Right, hurumende yanga yabuda through Ministry of Health yanga yabuda nemutemo iwowo wokuti zvitino hazvichakwanisa kufamba. Munhu akafira Mharara andoviga ipapo, akafira muNomburara anoviga ipapo. Asi ndofunga pamashure pekuti vanhu vauya vakatanga kutaura, vakatanga kupawo mazano avo, vakatanga kuratidza hurumende kuti aiwa dai tadai. Nhasi masikati ndaona imwe communique yanga yakubuda futi kuministry kokuti vanhu vakugona kuenda nevanhu vavo kunovaviga kwavanoda, asi pakuita izvozvo toteedzera zvirongwa zviripo zvakaiswa neWorld Health Organization kuti maburials anofambiswa sei. So chimwe chacho ndechekuti coffin yacho inofanirwa kutobva yatosiliwa from the parlor or the hospital mortuary. Hapasina kuvhura kunoitwa, saka munhu hapasina body viewing ichaitwa, kungotakura coffin yaya totoenda straight. Hatifure futi kumba, hatifure kumachechi, kubva kupala ikoko todriva straight kutonanga kumakuva kwacho ikoko munhu woita sei wovigwa. Saka izvo zvoratidza kuti hurumende yedu ihurumende inoteerera. Yes, vanga vabuda nemutemo iwowo, asi pamashure pekuti vanhu vapa miono yavo nekusema kwavo, hurumende yateerera ikati aiwa tiregai tichiita U-turn. Ndo zvinodikanwa kuhurumende. Hurumende inoteerera inofanira kudaro kuti kana vanhu vati apa hatisi kuona zvakanaka apa, vatoewo kogadziriswa.
Khonapo ke Chuma nxa sikhuluma ngkhonokho ubona ngani abantu bathini ngoDabalolo ngesindebele?
Ngesindebele uhulumende ebefakile umgoqo ukuthi hatshi akusela izidumbu ezizabe zimuva, njengokuthi nxa umuntu evele eHarare somele angcwatshele khona ngale, noma umuntu evela ngapha koBulawayo, nxa umuntu evela koBulawayo somele angcwatshele khonapha. Kodwa-ke ngemva kokuthi leso sinqumo sifakiwe, abantu abaningi bangenile ku-Twitter, abantu bebenza konke abanye besola besenzani. Ngemva kokusola lokwana, uhulumende namhlanje emini ngibone sokulenye icommunique evela ku-Ministry of Health isithi hayi, ngemva kokukhangelisisa udaba lolu sesingavumela ukuthi wona abantu bathwale izihlobo zabo bebangcwaba lapha abafuna ukuthi bebangcwabe khona. Kodwa ngemva kokuthi wona kuyenzakala izinto ezithize ezihambelana lemithetho yokungcwaba abantu ngesikhathi se-COVID lezi ezibiswa yi-World Health Organization. So okunye kwangikhona yikuthi khona leyo COVID nxa isuka isivaliwe yahle yasilwa ukuthi ayisavulwa futhi, and njalo nxa isuka lapho ayisayidlula emzini womuntu, ayisayidlula emachechi abantu, isithi iqonda straight isiya emangcwabeni umuntu uhambe ayongcwatha. Njalo kusetshenziswa bona laba abantu abomthetho abe-Ministry of Health kumbe abama-council kumbe abephala abavele befundiswe ukwenza lowo msebenzi wokungcwaba isidumbu esinjalo.
Siyakuzwa baba uChuma, sicela ubambe khonapho ungayikatshana. Silayo futhi omunye ubaba lapha ke ubaba nguSimba, what sibona ukuthi usakhona yini. Marvelous, go ahead with Mr. Mjuru.
Vamjuru, tinoona muno muAmerica pari zvino pane zvizhinji zviri kutaurika pamusoro pavaDonald Trump. Tiri kuona maDemocrats vachitungamirirwa naMai Nancy Pelosi vari kuti ivo aiwa vaTrump vanofanira kuti vamiswe pamberi pedare vaitwe impeached panyaya yemhirizhonga yakaitika svondo rapfuura. Munoona seizvi?
Thank you, Marvelous, and Happy New Year. I think that's the best course of action, considering the amount of irresponsibility that was on his part in persuading the followers that he has. If you remember the last time I was here, I did say he's got followers. I also did say the process is going to proceed, and I also did say on January 20th, Joe Biden is going to be sworn in as president. But responsibility comes when you hold that office. That office is so sacred. The presidency is supposed to be presidency for everybody. So I think they're doing the right thing.
Saka mumbotaura neshona kuti munoona sei zviri kuitika izvi?
Ndowirirana nezviri kuitika nekuti zvo kana une responsibility yekutungamirira nyika yese, kana wakuita zvinokonzera mhirizhonga, wakuita zvinoitisa kuti vanhu vatadze kugarisana zvakanaka, iwe uri mutungamiri wenyika unofanirwa kuendeswa pamberi pematare, unobvunzwa kuti kunai zvaifamba sei, sezvo vanhu vese vachifanirwa kukutarisira pamusoro-soro iwe zvaunotonga nyika yese.
asika vamwe vari kuti nguva yasara inguva shoma. Vadi kungomira vozongoti kana zvapera vaBiden vakutonga zvozoonekwa kuti zviri kufamba sei.
Zvimwe zvavanenge vachizviitira ndezvekuti mukuru uyu kana kuti angoita term 1 chete haana kuita 2 terms, vanenge vachida kuti kumudzivirira kuti asazomhanya futi makore anoteera. Saka ndosaka nyaya yacho ichitongwa so ichangoitika kuitira kuti vadecide kuti anozobvumidzwa here futi kuti amhanye futi here kana abate chimwe chinzvimbo mune zvekutongerwa kwenyika.
Thank you.
Right, so stay on the line there, Mr. Mchuru. We've got Mr. Busan Busontini. He lives in New York. Mr. Ntini, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Gibbs. Thank you, Dr. Marvelous. And hello.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Right, let's talk about what is going on in USA, like what Mr. Mchuru was actually saying. So looking at this impeachment issue and the invoking of the 25th Amendment, is this workable right now?
I believe the impeachment is workable. When it comes to the 25th Amendment, I think that one is a little bit dicey because it will require VP Pence to be on board. And I don't foresee the VP actually trying to own the demise of Donald Trump or of the Republican Party. So I have a feeling that Mike Pence may push the responsibility over to Congress. I know that Congress gave him 24 hours yesterday to respond. Otherwise, they'll go full force with the impeachment. So I see that the impeachment, I think, is workable. And the reason why I think they're trying to do the impeachment right now, like, what Mr. Mchuru said, is totally correct. They really want to keep this thing while it's fresh. And also, I think if you wait to start talking about impeachment after Donald Trump has left, some Republicans may, start forgiving him. But I think right now, this thing is still fresh in many people's minds. People still remember what they had to go through during the insurrection, when they had to hide. So I think right now, it's good to push while it's fresh in everyone's mind.
Yeah, when I'm going to ngesintu ubona ngathi kuyasebenza yini udaba lolu kumbe lapha ke lama Democrats sezama uthi ecampaign njengoba becabanga ukuthi babe sebenqobile la kukhetho lweSenate babambe futhi la ku presidential seat baphinde bebambe la House of Representatives.
No, I think ungakhangela into eyenziwa nguDonald Trump we-incite abantu be-attack i-capital. Lay, I think, is one of the biggest sins with government in the US. I think into embi kakhulu. So i-impeachment lokukhulunywa ngayo nge-25th Amendment akuphonga ukukhulunywa ngoba ama-Democrat afuna ukuscore ama-points. Yinto okumele iyenziwe ngoba kungela ukuthi kupanishwe abantu abenza into i-America going forward izaba lohlupho. So kumele besethe i-example ukuthi lokho akwenziwa eMelika. Lokho asikuzweni ukukhulunywa kwamanye amazwe. Ngiyakwazi kwamanye amazwe sithi khona owenzakala eMelika kuyafana lokwenzakala kibo. Ungakhayela iZimbabwe. Okwenzakala lapha e-America and what is happening in Zimbabwe, these are two different things. Bani uDonald Trump besenza okwenzakala eZimbabwe. Bani mhla kaNovember 3 wathi hayi angiluzanga walele esihlalweni. Kodwa siyabona ukuthi lapha ama-institution approvile ukuthi lapha hayi kule democracy. Ekhaya eZimbabwe kwanithwa iZEC le ruling government bathi hayi siwinile. Bani nje akuhle kwasayina ukuthi bawinile kwadlulelwa phambili. So kwenzakala eMelika is totally different from esikubona kwenzakala kwamanye amazwe. Ngiyazi ukuthi abanye bazozama ukuthi bekuhlanganise bethi into efana nayo. Kodwa lapha hayi it was proven ukuthi democracy iyasebenza iqinile.
So lapho uthi izanu ijalo ukwenza into ezinje ngokutsho kwakho ngani uyafanisela khona ukuthi nxa sekulokhetho bathi
no lapho sikhala but iqiniso ukuthi sijala ukuzwa kunjalo ukuthi izanu i-combination ye-ZEC yezanu i-team liyanothi nxa uyidlala vele hayi impumela yokhetho isisazakala. idlala ungakayenzakala.
Yes, siyakuzwa kakhulu ke sicela ubambe khonapho ungayikhatshana sizwe abanye abantu abakhuluma khonokho. So marvelous, we've got some people who sent us messages via WhatsApp. Let's hear what they are saying about this issue.
NguTrump lokho akusebenzi lokho akaphumi uTrump akaphumi esikhundleni engayenziwa lokho okwenziwa ama-African leaders bevumelana labe-SADC ukuthi abantu berobhile ukhetho bebasapote akaphume lo akaphume uluzile nje wathathela u-Obama zangalwe laye kaphume nje aziphume igama uGabadela Ncube lapha e-4ways eJoburg.
Lokho kwenziwe nguTrump lokho akusinto enhle elizweni. uTrump utshenisele ukungahloniphi kakhulu ngento leyo ayenzileyo ngoba nxa engathi abantu bayenza udlakela ukuze bavale impumela yokhetho akusinto ebusesikeleyo. uTrump wadliwa engakhulumanga amakhoxo udlakela kaluncedisi udlakela kalubumbi njalo sehlome amazwe e-Afrika ukubana wona mayedliwa ayale ngoba okwalele embusweni lokube sijayele sikwazele e-Afrika ngoba e-Afrika lapha umongameli engadliwa kavumi ukuphuma esikhundleni uphuma nzima. Siyakubongela nje ukuthi khona eMelika yindaba enanzelela amalungelo oluntu ilizwe eliyazi ngezomthetho. Konke lokhu akwenzayo mbona ngani akusoze ke kuphumelele ngoba umthethwandaba yalahla udaba lwakhe kudala sefuna ukwenza okwenkani. Kodwa ke hayi ngasenani noma ngaze ayenza inkani akayindawo wadliwa uTrump kavulela ubhadi ndla yangene engenza kubi laye bazamkhipha.
Igama lami nguWashington Ncube ngibuya eCholotsho koSkende. Umbuso kaMnumzana uDonald Trump awuhlukanga kwe-Afrika kwamanye wamazwe ase-Afrika. Uyi-dictator nje ukwenza kwakhe konke kubonisa ukuba i-dictator mpela. Bana nje wathola ilizwe elinye elingafani le-America. Hayi bezabusa kuze kube amen. Yikho kwaba ibhadi nje ukuthi ayobusa ezweni efana le-America. So umcabango wakhe kade efisa ungathi engaguqula ukuthi ijike kodwa ke ngibona ngathi hayi bazatshetshe bekulungisa ama-American. Mina bengifisa vele betshetshe bemkhiphe insuku lezo mhla ka-28 efika vele sephumile. Ngifisa kanjalo ngigcine ngathi kuhlongozwe into ezidazibe njalo. Umbuso wakhe wehlulekile impela wehlulekile ukubusa. Kodwa ke asikubeke nje straight ukuthi uvele utsho ukuthi khona kuyakube khona ukuqilibezela okuthile ngoba amboni ukuthi into akade engayikhuluma la kungena kwakhe kusho ukuthi wangena nge-back door. So well iminyaka le ngathi sibona izimanga eziningi sibheke lapha icorona le-America la yenza izinto esingakaze sizibone since sazalwa.
Indaba eyenziwa ngabalandeli baka-Trump lela hayi uTrump ngokwakho wrongo. Uyabona-ke lo mongameli ozangena mbona usazobafaka edale usazobabophisa ngoba kathesi phela sokulabantu abafileyo le mpahla yamoshakala lapha lalaphana. So mbona ngathi kurongo khonokhuya. Idemocracy kayikho kanjalo, kumele admit avume ukuthi hayi nginqotshiwe. Hayi khona lokhu yena afuna ukukwenza. Lokhu afuna ukwenza ayisikho totally ngitsho la kancane. Barongo abalandeli baka-Trump laba ngoba soyumotsha impahla bemotsha into eziningi ezitshiyeneyo.
So these are some of the people, marvelous, who actually sent us messages. You know, they are saying Trump didn't do the right thing. And I think they are very much agreed on that point. So, but there are some Trump followers who are saying, you know, they need their country back, you know.
Yes, interesting points of view, but it's also interesting to hear what the world over is saying about what they saw happening here in the States. So interesting points there. And I see there are some people who are watching here with us. There's Oswald Kangai who's saying, thank you, Studio 7, for choosing to be live. We are excited to welcome you too. But ava mujuru tinoona vamwewo vanenge vari kutarisa vari kunze kwenyika dzakadai savana Zimbabwe. Imi zvii zvamuri kunzwawo zviri kutaurwa nevanhu vari kumusha pamusoro pezviri kuitika imo muno muAmerica?
One thing for sure is that the conversation on democratic space is no longer the same in terms of from looking at it from an American perspective. America is ideally supposed to be an example of democracy working right, quote unquote. But when things like this happen, they show how normal they are, that they are not in any category that's different from us. Democracy is not supposed to be perfect by nature. It's supposed to have kinks and self-correction and stuff like this. So now we're now starting to understand. It's like us Zimbabweans now, we should start to understand that as we mature democratically in this democratic space, things happen. We need to make corrections here and there, and that's how democracy moves forward. But asking for perfection is no longer an option for the Americans to do now.
Tombonzwa nerurimi rwamai kuti munoona sei zviri kuitika imo muno, zviri kutambirwa sei kuAfrica takanyanyotarisa nenyika dzakadai seZimbabwe?
Tiri kuona kuti zvaitwa nehurumende yeUnited States of America yekuudza vanhu kuti democracy kana nyika idzi dzinogovernwa sei zvaane musiyano manje nekuti ivo varakidzawo kuti mavo munyika muno zvinogona kuenda nerimwe divi. Ndo zvatinoti izvozvo zvinoitika mukugara vanhu mukugara munyika umu, zvinhu zvakasiyana siyana zvinenge zvichiitika nekuti vanhu vakagarisana sei. Saka ngatiregedzei kupota tichipanana mastandards ari abnormal kana kuti tinzi vamwe vanhu ngavaite chinhu chisingakwanisike kuitika to perfection. Saka ipapa zvatirakidza kuti nobody is immune. Hakuna munhu anotadzawo kuti rimwe gore maelection kana sarudzo dzinoenda nerimwe divi.
Tombotarisa iyo inauguration yavaJoe Biden, munoona pachizofamba zvakanaka here kana kuti vatsigiri vavaTrump vangadzoke zvakare?
Ndoona kuti tichafamba zvakanaka nekuti vakuziva kuti ava vanoita sei. Chimwe changa tisingazive, takatarisa mapresident ese emuno muAmerica, isi takaverenga kubva kunana Hoover, kunana Roosevelt, kunana Kennedy tichiuya kuno kumusoro, zvaitika apa hazvisati zvamboitika before. Ndokutotanga kuitika kwazvo. Saka chakatanga ndo chachenjedzaka, zvinoreva kuti vakuziva kuti ava vanhu ava vakaregererwa vanoitisa zvinhu zvinokonzera kana kuparadza kweupenyu kwevanhu. Nokuti ipapa takaona kuti vanhu 6 ezvinezvi hanzi vakatoshaya. Saka kuti tiite zvinhu zvinoitisa kuti vanhu vashaye futi, handifunge kuti vanenge vachida izvozvo. Saka vakutogadzirira kuti zvakadai hazviitike futi. Mapurisa achawanzwa, kana maNational Guards achidikanwa achanzi ari pastandby kuitika kuti izvozvo zvisaitike futi.
Ndombobvunza zvakare, takaona vaDonald Trump vachinyora ivo paTwitter vasati vaburitswa paplatform iyoyi vachiti havasi kuzowanikwa vachienda kuinauguration kana kuti pakugadzwa kwavaBiden. Zviri kutambirika sei izvi?
Ndofunga vanhu vakumuziva manje unhu hwake. Varungu vanomboti hanzi one monkey doesn't stop the show. Saka zviri kuitika nyange vakaregedza kuuya, nyange vakauya zviri kwavari, hazvisi kuzochinja kuti vaBiden vachazogara panzvimbo yekutungamira nyika. Izvozvo hazvichinji.
Okay, thank you.
Now let's turn to another issue. Now the issue concerning the arrest of journalist Hopewell Chinono. Then for Zayma, the spokesperson of the MTC Alliance, and Jobla, who is the vice chairperson of the MTC Alliance. What's your view on that, Mr. Mjur?
Me, like anybody else, obviously, I read it on social media and I read it on this to see what's going on. I don't have enough detail. I'm also looking to research and see what's going on over there. So on that subject, unfortunately, I don't have enough information to see what the issue is going on there.
Let's turn to Mr. Joseph Chuma of ZANU-PF. Mr. Chuma, what's going on? Because it seems the government is using a law that was actually repealed to persecute these people, or let me say, to prosecute these people. So what's going on, Chuma?
Thank you very much, Juven. The first thing that we must really put into context here is to say, who are these people that we are talking about? We are talking of the so-called renowned journalist who's pro. We are talking of a seasoned politician who I believe holds a senior position in their party as vice chairman of the party, whose job scholar. and was speaking about a whole spokesperson of that same party, who's Fatima Harry. So here we are talking of senior people that are probably followed by thousands and thousands of people, even in their social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, whatever. So these are people that should not ever at one given point say anything recklessly or without verification. As a journalist, Hopper must know that one of the ethics of journalism is to verify your facts before you broadcast them outside there. And then here we have these three people, senior members of a party and senior citizens in Zimbabwe, well-known even, who then go out and publish falsehoods without even caring to verify the story that they are publishing about. And then in the meantime, putting a whole situation into a volatile sort of time bomb, whereby people could have carried out instant or mob justice on that policeman, or anything could have happened because of their careless reporting. So now, my question is that, should then government fold its hands and say, bravo, well, we can't do anything because of that? That's number one. And number two, why is it that out of the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of politicians that we have here in Zimbabwe, why is it always the same culprits that are always on crossroads with the laws? And I'm talking about Job Sikala, I'm talking about Robert Chinono, I'm talking about Ngari Vumez. These are the same people, but we have hundreds of thousands of politicians, some who are even more seasoned than them. Even their president himself, Nelson Chamisa, we have never seen him going on the crossroads with the law, because whatever he tweets, he has never tweeted anything that is insightful. He has never tweeted anything that is hateful, to cause hate or distress. He tweets about whatever he tweets about, and he's got the freedom to do that, and the law respects that. But now, these same culprits all the time must come up and must be at crossroads with the law. And then I begin to wonder, anything else hidden that we don't know about? This, when conspiracy theories start rising up to say, maybe these people are being paid for doing that. Like, when he's seated at home and he actually feels broke, he just says, let me go and say something nasty and I'm going to be put in jail, and then after that I'm paid. Those are the kind of things that now come into someone's mind. But why is it that it's only just, they're not more than 10, just less than 5 people that are always crossroads with the law? Are they the ones vocal? Are they the ones that know how to treat properly more than anyone else? Are they the ones with gadgets that treat better, or something within the opposition? Really, these are the kind of questions that beg answers now. But what I remember, while they were treating the freedom of speech and whatever, but you must remember, your freedoms are limited to other people's freedoms too. You can't say that I'm free to say whatever I want and I'll get away with it. No, but if it's infringing someone else's right, then it becomes a problem. Then the law takes its own course.
Thank you.
Want to scream and complain. It is wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chuma. Mr. Abusani, let's get Mr. Antini first. Mr. Antini, then go to Mchuru.
Yes.
Come in there. Yes, what's your view of this thing?
I think this issue is a very complex issue. Because when you look at the video that was tweeted by many people, including myself, I retweeted that video.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mother carrying a baby that appeared to be lifeless. If that baby was alive, then it had to be a doll, because even the head was just bending down. And this mom was actually fighting the cop, and there was a crowd around that mom.
Mm-hmm.
So now we need to know the facts of that particular case. Had that child just fainted? That child actually died.
The police are saying the child is alive and kicking.
But when you look at the video that we looked at, that was real time. So people reacted to a real time event. It's not that this thing was archived. It was happening live. It was broadcast live. And you could easily see that the child was lifeless. And also, the police have admitted that there were rogue police actually went out there hitting people inside the buses and why not. So the police did admit only halfway, but they're not telling us about this child. Where is the mom? Why can the mom come my child is fine. Can we see the evidence? And then for Ubaba Chuma, I think when someone does something like this, umthetho should take its course. But Chuma nxa ngambuza kathi yena uthe ohophwele bayabhadalwa imali. Uliqiniso yini khonokho? What if Ohopio can prove that's not true? Can Uchuma be persecuted for claiming that the American embassy, British embassy, is paying Ohopwell for going to jail? So I think we have to be careful. Otherwise, even Studio 7, we won't be able to come here and state anything because we'll fear we will be persecuted. We've read the Chronicle. We've read so many things of Lamanga. So are we saying that in Zimbabwe, even a journalist cannot be given a chance to retract a statement? Why is it that Hopper and the crew, if evidence came out that the child was still alive, were they even given a chance to retract their tweets? Because journalism, sometimes you have to retract because you are going by real life evidence that was out there. It might turn out it wasn't true, or maybe there was some cover-up, we don't know. But I think at the end of the day, we are entering a very dangerous territory here. We all end up in jail.
Thank you, Mr. Antini. We've got a human rights lawyer right here.
Sorry, Mr. Dweke, can I answer on that one?
30 seconds. Yes, 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yes. Right. If Ubabutini was listening properly, I said this is the time when conspiracy theorems come up to say maybe something is happening, maybe they are being paid. And that is why I've not gone on Twitter to then declare that they are paid. I'm simply saying that now my head is spinning. I'm thinking of certain things. I'm saying maybe I've heard these rumors, but I'm not going to go out with it and publish it because I don't know if it's true or it's not true. And like we said, he's a renowned journalist. Those are big-time politicians. You cannot go out there and tweet and say the police have murdered a child before you actually go out and verify that fact. He who alleges must then prove. That's what we say at law. So when they allege, then they must be the ones to prove. They must be the ones to go and show us the burial processes, where that child has been buried or whatever. But what I'm saying is that as responsible citizens and there's big people in society, we cannot afford to have them going loose like that and coming up with such things.
Thank you. Yeah. Just 1 second.
Believe that and follow that.
1 second, Jacob. Let's have a legal mind here. Mr. Mavinga, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Gibbs. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, what's your view on this issue?
Well, I think what's clear, and this is what the lawyers are arguing in Harare, is that the charges against Wopo Chingono, Job Sikala, and Advocate Fadzai Mahere are based on a non-existent law. The law that is quoted was struck down in 2014 in a matter that was brought before the Constitutional Court by the Zimbabwe Independent and senior journalist and the editor there, including Vincent Kahia. So it's clear that there is no basis in law for these charges. And this is why WOPO is making a constitutional application for the Constitutional Court to set aside this arrest, because the section that is relied on is a section that was found to be a violation of free expression and a violation of the 2013 Constitution of Zimbabwe. So this is a law that was struck down because it was found by the Constitutional Court to be unconstitutional. So whatever the merits or otherwise of the facts that are there, the basis of the charge is neither here or there, because it is based on a law that is void from its very basis, void ab initio, we say at law. So there is no basis in law for this kind of harassment that is happening.
Marvelous, and then maybe to Mr. Mchuru.
Regaiti mbonzwa kubva kuna vamavinga toti happy new year. Munoona sei zviri kuitika pari zvino tichitarisa isu kuti taona mazuva iwaya achangobva kupfuura vazhinji nyanya vebato reMDC Alliance uyezve nemutori wenhau Hope Chimwono vachiwanikwa ivo vachisungwa, zvakamira sei?
Kushungurudzwa kuri kuitwa mutori wenhau Hope Chimwono, vaJobs Kala na Fadzai Mahere weMDC Alliance, mutauriri mukuru weMDC Alliance, nekuti mutemo uri kushandiswa mutemo wakasendekwa parutivi neConstitutional Court muna 2014. Constitutional Court yakataura pachena kuti mutemo uyu haupo, haufaniri kunge uripo nekuti unokanganisa kodzero dziri mubumbiro remutemo renyika ra2013, kunyanya kodzero yemunhu yekuti akwanise kutaura zviri mundangariro akasununguka. Saka zvisinei nenyaya iripo iyi kuti yakamira sei, mutemo uri kushandiswa hausi mutemo uripo iko zvino. Ndo nyaya iri kutaurwa nemagweta ari kumiririra Hope Chimwono naJobs Kala yavanga vachitaura mukoti nhasi kuti aiwaka masunga vanhu, asi vanhu vasungwa nemutemo usisipo, mutemo wakaraswa kare. Saka remekedzai kodzero dzevanhu, kwete kushungurudza vanhu muchitora chimutemo chakaraswa muna 2014 mushure mekunge Zimbabwe Independent nemaeditor avo vana Vincent Kahia nana Chimakure vataura kuti uyu mutemo uyu unofanira kuti usendekwe nekuti unodzimaidza nekukanganisa kodzero dzevanhu.
Pane mumwe mubvunzozve wandanoda kubvunza wekuti tichitarisa kuti iko kuno kuAmerica svondo rinouya kuchapinda yatingati hurumende itsva, zviri kuitika munyika izvi hazvizokanganisa here hwaro? Tinoona kuti America yanga yakatarisa kuti kodzero dzevanhu ngadziwanikwe dzichiremekedzwa nezvimwe zvakadaro. Munoona sei ipapapo?
Pane dambudziko guru rekuti zviri kuitika kuZimbabwe hazvina chimiro, zvinokanganisa chimiro chenyika. Zvinoita sekuti kune vamwe vari kuvaviwa varenga vachida kuti vatokonye, varambe vachiratidza kuti isu tiri nini, hatiremekedze kodzero. Saka ini pamaonero angu ndiri kutoona sekuti pana vamwe vari kufara kuti ngatishungurudzei vanhu, tirambe tichidena, kuti tirambe tichinzi aiwa vanhu ava ngavarambe vari kunze. Nekuti dai vatungamiri veZimbabwe vachida kugadzirisa ukama, honai kuAmerica kuri kuuya hurumende itsva svondo rinouya, zvakakosha kuti ndiwo mukana wavangadai vatora kuti varegedze kushungurudza vanhu, vagare pasi kuti sevana veZimbabwe tiri kuremegedza kodzero dzenyu. Kana munhu achinge apara mhosva osungwa, kwete kungononga vanhu pasina mhosva mozotanga kufungira mhosva munhu avharirwa mutorongo. Zvakare kwete kushandisa mitemo yakarambwa nematare edzimhosva kare kare. Saka zviri kuitika izvi hazvibatsiri nyika yeZimbabwe, hazvibatsiri hurumende yeZimbabwe, asi ndinoona sekuti mukati meZANU-PF, mukati mebato riri kutonga remuZimbabwe reZANU-PF, mune dzimwe nhini dzisingadi rugare, vanoda kuti vari vachinyongora, vanoda kubvongodza muto, vamwe vachida kuseva. Nhini idzodzo hadzidi runyararo, vanoda kuti varambe vachingodzi chete vachiramba vachisaidzirwa shamu ine munyu yemasanctions. Hazvisi izvo, nyika ngaikwanise kutarisa mberi yosumukira, kwete kungoramba ichingori gakava negakava nguva nenguva. Iko zvino ZANU-PF yakare iyoyo iri kukakavadzana neSouth Africa, vana Mugwadi nevamwe. Hazvinaki, tinoda runyararo nebudiriro.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Can I say something about that?
Yes, sir.
The sheer look to this.
I think to be fair, allow me to also respond.
No, let's get.
This panel is full of people that are
under. Okay, we've got a ZANU-PF. We've got a ZANU-PF fellow right now, Mr. Simba Mchuru.
Right. When someone speaks, let me also speak to the.
Right.
So
right.
Your time and like current.
That's fine, Mr. Chuma. Thank you, Mr. Chuma. Mr. Mchuru, chip in.
The sheer one-sidedness of the past speaker, what he's talking about, clearly he's got to look at things from a big picture standpoint. There are same players who continue to come across the law constantly, right? Which is now showing a pattern that these people in the opposition and some of these journalists are after one thing and one thing alone, which is to discredit the government. I'll give you a good example. There are other countries from a global scale, right? If you look at Mexico, for example, Mexico has got some of the biggest drug lords on planet Earth, but you never see Mexican journalists and opposition party going straight out of their country to bring all this out, because they understand the impact of their work and the damage it does to their country. What we're asking for and what we hope for is those journalists to be more patriotic and also to take the craft more responsibly. You cannot consistently publish things that you cannot verify. That's why earlier on, when you asked me about the issue, I said I don't know, which is the truth. Why can't Hopewell, if he doesn't know something, come out and say, I don't know it, instead of consistently going after the government with no facts? That's where I have a problem with it. Let's be responsible. And it comes from a place of some of those being people almost like being insecure about being Zimbabwean, which is a personal issue they need to deal with, not to constantly give bad name to the country and the economy and causing all these sanctions and all this stuff. That should come to an end at some point.
Mr. Mavinga, you're shaking your head before we go to Mr. Chuma.
Yes, I am shaking my head because what Simbam Juri is saying is missing the point completely. The law that has been used to charge Wopo Chingono, Job Sikala, and Advocate Father Mahere does not exist. It is a void law, it is unconstitutional, and it is a violation of basic rights. So that's the starting point. We are not going to look at the merit, but let's simply say the law does not exist. Does he know that? I am speaking as a lawyer, as a human rights lawyer. I don't know Simba's qualifications, but does he know that that law was struck off the statutes in 2014?
I understand what you're saying, but get what I'm saying. I'm saying Hopewell as a journalist. This is not the first case. Let's look at the big picture, sir.
Why do you use a law that's non-existent?
Hold on. Let's look at the big picture. We are saying Hopewell on a consistent basis makes up some of these things that he cannot verify.
No, Simba. Let's use facts. Wopo has never been convicted of any crime in Zimbabwe. He is being persecuted. Wopo is a seasoned journalist. He has never been convicted of any crime. So as we speak, Wopo is innocent. He has not committed any crime. You cannot talk of a pattern which is non-existent because he has no criminal record.
Okay. You jumped in when I was in the middle of saying something. That's why I didn't say anything. I am saying, does Hopewell understand the responsibility of journalism from a national standpoint? What you put out there, right, can damage the economy, can damage the country, can affect us with things called sanctions and so forth and so forth. That's why I'm saying these consistent players, the oppositions, the Maheres of this world, the Hopewells of this world, the Job Scholars of this world are on a consistent pattern of making sure that negative publicity comes to the country consistently. Not just this time alone. They've done it several times.
But Mr. Mujuri, if I may just chime in there, like I will just reiterate what Mr. Mavinga was saying, that there is a new incoming government coming in with Mr. Biden, but we're seeing negative publicity coming from the government itself.
Marvelous. Here's what I'm saying. The calculated effort coming from the opposition in Zimbabwe is stuff that you don't see in any other country besides Zimbabwe. They're quick to criticize their own country publicly. You know, you live in America like I live in America. We see a lot of negative things that happen in this country. But you don't see American journalists going the path that Hopewell, the Maheras going. You never see Nancy Pelosi going to address a foreign government about what's happening in America. Surely you know that there's problems in America, right? We're saying don't create standards for Zimbabwe that are not practiced anywhere else in the world. Every country's got problems, including Zimbabwe, including the United States of America, including Japan. You just don't see the opposition and some journalists, quote unquote, go on a rampage or go on this path to just make sure that they destroy their own country. That is what I have a problem with. If we have issues in Zimbabwe, yes, problems here and there. Yes, the people are entitled to certain constitutional rights. Don't forget, one of the biggest things that ZANU-PF went to war for was the Bill of Rights. So that people like Hopewell, people like Mahere can say whatever they want whenever they want to say it. What I have a problem with is that when they try and globalize the problem, that should be taken within the infrastructure of our own system.
Thank you, Mr. Mjuru. Let's go to Mr. Chuma briefly and Mr. Ntini, because our time is out now. Mr. Chuma,
thank you very much. I think the whole point has been put into perspective to say that it's not about like what Mavinga is saying. Yes, there might be the law that has been struck off and stuff like that, but the police, according to them, have seen a person who has committed an offense. They've reported falsely, so they've arrested that person. And yes, it's up to their lawyers to now go to court and prove that no, this law does not exist as yet, and then therefore maybe he can go scot-free. But the point is, did he do something wrong? And the answer is yes. He reported falsely. He claimed that a policeman murdered somebody. So definitely, that's something that must be looked into. And the police have arrested. And when they've arrested, the courts can now then say, okay, the technicalities of that, this law was struck off because of A, B, C, D, is something else. And that can be done by the courts. And that would be very fair and fine as well. But what we're simply saying that the law enforcement cannot stand by and allow somebody to just go by and do the wrong things and say that no, because he's a renowned journalist or because he's a senior politician. That then becomes wrong. And that's where our point is to say, no, the law took its course. Now they can go to court and prove whatever they want to prove. It's just like here in Zimbabwe. We don't have that patriotism law like in America. In America right now, if you just incite, then it becomes treasonous. If you look at the clips on CNN, those people are now being charged with domestic terrorism. They are being charged with almost like treason, insurrection, and stuff like that. But here, we don't have those kind of things. Job Scholar has been on point saying that we are going to remove this government by Emerson Mnangagwa violently and stuff like that. If somebody in America had said that same statement, they'll be charged because there's a law in America that will protect that. But we don't have that law.
Thank you, Joe.
On POSA. So this POSA does not cover those kind of things. But to say that it's not a crime, it's something else. It is a crime, but there is no law that supports it for prosecution only. That is why people like Hopeful are still going scot-free, because we still don't have those kind of laws that will hold them accountable for such utterance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chuma. Mr. Ntini, briefly in Ndebele and English, I'm giving you 1.5 minutes. Quiet.
No, siyabonga Dube for the opportunity to be able. But I think this issue of persecution of these three, or should we say these two common people, is a true indication with abantu they are very laba ngabantu abavele befuna ukukhipha izandla la kuchume sitsho. So I think was isikhathi ukuvula umlomo kaHopewell losikhala kumbe lomkarevume. It's easy for a government to react over they deem them as a threat. I think that's very problematic.
Yes, so sicela ukuthi uChuma avale kancane ifoni yakhe. Mavinga, your last word.
Well, the people who are undermining the image of Zimbabwe are the overzealous police who are arresting without a basis in law and using prosecution to persecute human rights defenders and government critics. There is no law in Zimbabwe that should have Hopewell, Job Scholar, and Fadzai arrested for their tweets. So if the police are now focusing on spending their time on Twitter, monitoring what people are saying and arresting people, that is a hallmark of a banana republic, a pariah state, and it cannot be a basis for the revival of Zimbabwe or for a so-called new dispensation. So it's unfortunate that the people who are undermining Zimbabwe are deep within the system, the police, ZANU-PF, and the government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manjuru. 30 seconds.
I'm shocked that as a lawyer, is anti-due process. If people have been arrested, the next thing that they do is that they go to court so that the case can be heard. So at this point, to debate that, I think is immature. I let this man talk. Due process. Let the courts determine what if there's no law or not. Again, my last thing is the self-hate of the country is what I'm against. Zimbabweans must learn to love their country first. You cannot hear something small and completely blast it globally when due process hasn't even happened. That's what's absurd. Let them go to court like anybody else. Let the court give them a guilty or not guilty, whatever is being cited in a court of law. That's how due process works. Let's not create standards that are not available to anywhere else in the world, but just for Zimbabwe. That's not right.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry we are out of time and we have to leave it there. We thank our guests this evening, Mr. Simba Muchuru of ZANU-PF, Mr. Musani Mbuso Ntini, an independent political commentator, Mr. Joseph Chuma of ZANU-PF too, and then Mr. Dewa Mavinga, a human rights lawyer. Signing off is Gibbs Dube in Maryland saying, Good night, Zimbabwe.
I'm Marvelous Mhlanga-Nyahuye here in Washington, D.C., where I'm broadcasting from home because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Tosangana mangwana pa, let's talk ngati kurukurei.
Good night all.